Cue the 90s hacking scene. All right, we hacked the mainframe. Just kidding. That was just some DNF. Welcome back to another NovNov with me, Jeff Krackenberg, and I am going to be getting into blocking root access using Telnet to do some remote shenaniganery, and then setting a firewall rule in our NovNov1, which is a droplet in the digital ocean. See the previous video if you don't have that and you want to follow along, or you could just follow along and learn. We left off with me talking about and making a joke as how I can leave a VM live in the cloud and nothing bad will happen, right? I can trust you guys with that. Turns out, no, you shouldn't ever leave VMs that are just password-based authentication, especially to root live. So that command I just did was last B or last bad login, and then I can pipe that into WC for word count, -L for lines, and we'll see that there are over 6,000 bad login attempts or failed login attempts. Specifically, I can look at just the ones that are going for the root account by grepping or regex searching inside of that last B readout for the term root and just count those lines. And I got 1,800, 1881. It was a bad year. Anyway, so that was to get us started. Full disclosure, I recorded this whole thing. It went on way too long. It was about 26 minutes. And then the recording software I was using crashed. So I'll be looking into figuring that out for later videos this month. But for now, we're just going to do a second attempt at it. I just have a few things we're going to go over. First was that bad login, right? It was targeting SSH and the root account. And I don't want to disable SSH because that is how I am logging in. So instead, I want to disable root's ability to SSH in that default Linux administrator account. So how we can do that is we need to update the configurations to say that we do not permit root to SSH in. And we can do that by CD or change directory over to our SSH and then sshd config.d. So this is going to hold the configuration files for our SSH. Right now, I've only got two, and I need to add a third. So I can do echo and then permit, what was it, root login. No, we put that into 99 no root.conf. I think that was it. So what this is going to do is it is going to take the phrase permit root login, no, and all echo does is repeat it. And so it's going to repeat that back to us. But the right facing caret, which I think that's the greater than symbol, the greater than symbol is going to redirect the standard output of that. So instead of reading out the echo to our terminal, it is going to put it into the file, and I can verify that that is there with a new ls. And then we just need to restart our SSH daemon. Damon, I like to imagine a bunch of tiny little Matt Damons running around inside of the computer like it's that one movie, but better. Anyway, clear is my most used command. It's just how you clear the screen. And that is going to get us hypothetically to where we should be able to root in, right? So let's check it. I'm just going to exit. That's the command to close the current thing and go back to where you were. So now I'm back on just my host computer, and I'll do that same SSH that I just did, targeting that root account. Helps if I remember my password. Because if you don't get the password right, you're definitely not going to be able to log in. But we want to make sure that we're blocking root, even with the right credentials. So that is one failure, two failures, and three failures. Wouldn't that have been funny if that was the time it succeeded when I did that dramatic pause to take a drink of my coffee? So we can't go in on root. The important thing is to do this after you create your own account, or else you won't be able to get back in So now I can sign in as my Jeff K account that I created in the last video. Go ahead and clear that out. And now we're back in. The important thing in the last video, we put our Jeff K. Well, I put my Jeff K account. I hope you guys used a different name, not Jeff K for it. That'd be weird. Anyway, we put that account into the wheel group. So if I do groups Jeff K again, what that wheel group allows us to do is sudo, which elevates a command to root, or su, which elevates our shell to root, or we could do sudo su to elevate the command of su to root to elevate our shell to root. And I know there's going to be someone on here that's like, that's not correct. You didn't get into the intricacies of shell management, and that's not actually what shell management is. You're misleading a bunch of people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like 85% correct, and that's good enough for me. Su, switch user or super user, sudo, super user do object. That's how I remember them. But now we're here in root, and I'm going to do that same last B again, but specifically gonna grep for that root so we could see some of that. And we'll see that a lot of it came from very similar IP addresses. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the GeoIP of some of those, just a way to kind of figure out what's going on. I'm going to write down a few on my physical notepad. I am big on taking notes. So I have a physical notepad to my side that I like to write these things down on. I also have down on my taskbar both Notepad++ and Obsidian. I still haven't found a way that I love to take notes. I just love to take notes. And so different platforms work differently for me. And I'm just going to take down three of these really quick, the three that you guys see as unique ones on the screen there. The 80, 94, 993, 193, 4625599, and 193, 4625557. The reason why that's important and why I did that 90s hacking scene at the beginning. So if you know the history command in Linux, it can help you look back on what you've done, because if you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it, or whatever that saying says. So if I do history, you guys will see that I did DNF install telnet and firewalld with a -y. So this reached out and it installed the packages of telnet and the package of firewalld. And the reason why I did that is because I need them for the next part. Inquisitive minds might notice that I removed them. That goes back to the fact that this video was already done and lost, and it's not scripted. So I had to redo it all, and I wanted to start from a blank slate. So we have the tools that we need. If you're following along and you didn't catch this at the beginning when I just made the joke about the 90s hacking scene, go ahead and DNF install Telnet firewalld -y so that we can get our stuff going. And Telnet is not something you should be using. I regularly say the only reason to use Telnet is to SSH into something, or is to Telnet in to configure SSH. Words are hard. But there is a place called telehack.com, which is a live Telnet server. And sometimes I'll use this to go ahead and check on some stuff, is what I'll say. Or sometimes I just pull it up on my second monitor and I just look at the aquarium. I just kind of, then you've got some lo-fi going in the back of your mind or off another device, and it's very peaceful. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. So I'm going to clear that. And what I'm going to do is GeoIP. This is a way to look up the geographical region associated with an IP address. Historically, this was really cool. You could figure out where things are coming from. The internet doesn't really work like that anymore, but I can pretty quickly see that the three IP addresses that I pulled earlier from that last bad are all coming from Romania. So that would be if something organizationally you were trying to shore up security even further, you could look into blocking that autonomous system or figuring out why it's coming through there, figure out what that traffic is, why you're getting a bunch of bad login attempts on your root account. I won't spoil that for you guys. I believe in your ability to do research. So I'm just going to exit out. But before I do that, if you didn't catch, I did GeoIP. and then the IP address, and it gave me the country as well as the time zone and autonomous system. All of that can be used to find out more about it. Did it again and again, and it just so happens that all three that I picked shockingly came from Romania. Reason why I did the review that time is because we lose that. That is not going to be in our system's history. So if I do history and then just tail the last five, right? All it shows is that I went to telnet space telehack.com because those commands of GeoIP and Aquarium were not run on this computer. They were run on the other system. So it's not tracked in my history because root at NovNov2 didn't do it. So we blocked root. We checked out something with Telnet, and now we just have Telnet and not a lot of security around it. And I don't really want to leave it open. I don't currently have a firewall rule allowing Telnet, but maybe one day I will want to. So I don't want to just block Telnet all over. I'm going to want to use a rich rule, and that's where Firewalld comes in handy. So first we're going to systemctl start Firewalld just to get it going. Just out of habit, every time I start something, I always go and status it just to make sure. So I do have it running there. And I use the firewall CMD command and interact with Firewalld. There are a lot of different ways you can do it. The reason why I like doing this is because we can then go in and add rich rules right through our command line. Oh, I'm gonna look at my notes. My memory is not that good. I wish it was. Some days it feels like it is, but it's not. So port 23. And then every time I do this, I'm like, what protocol is that? Is that TCP? Is it UDP? And I'll go and I'll look it up, and it's like 90% of the time TCP. Um, so what this rule is saying is that for firewall CMD, we are going to add a permanent rule, so it's going to stay live, and it's going to be a rich rule for IPv4, port 23, protocol TCP, and it's going to reject it. Already enabled. It's because I did this earlier, but it still gave that success, so the command works. I can then firewall cmd reload and systemctl firewall d. Nope. Systemctl restart firewalld. And then I can open up a new tab in my terminal and use a PowerShell command called testnet connection, which is like a super ping, but it allows us to ping and then also check if the port is live. I had to grab my IP address really quick. So what I can do is I can do -port at the end, 23, and then information level of quiet to just do a really quick check. And in this case, it's still going to take a while, even for a quiet one. So what this is saying is that at your IP address, at that port, we're trying to make a TCP connection. So this would essentially double check our rule. If it can connect over port 23 with the protocol of TCP, the thing that we just explicitly blocked, right? So that was false. A lot of times you won't throw that information level quiet in there because you want the full readout when you're testing network connections. And this is going to try and connect over TCP with port 23. And if that fails, then it is going to try and ping. So it's a nice double check for us there. And the TCP failed. So now we're going to go ahead and wait for the ping to fail, or sorry, wait for the ping to succeed. So we have connectivity right here. Ping succeeded, but our TCP test was false. So we can talk, which is great because I'm already connected. We can talk, but we can't connect over port 23, the one that we enabled there. And so that is going to be it for today's stuff. Again, throw out the history command. So on our root, what we did was we installed Telnet and Firewalld. We looked at last bad logins, both the word count of them and how many times that root account was checked. We then went into our SSH daemon. There's a bunch of tiny little mat daemons. There's the SSH daemon, the Firewalld daemon. There's a bunch of daemons. Anyway, and then created a new file to not permit root logon. We then tested that from the host, signed back in. I will exit out and also hold up on the history of my user for a bit so you guys can see some of the shenaniganery we did over there. A lot of similar stuff, except we also telnetted to telehack.com to do some GeoIP and then went and did the firewall rules. So go ahead and clear my screen. We can use exit to exit out of our shell and then exit, just close PowerShell. And if you guys are not leaving the VM live, like if you want to come back to this later, totally fine. This virtual machine has now been up for almost 24 hours and it still has not estimated any costs. Realistically, we're sitting at about 7 cents of cost right now because it's $4 for the month. But if you don't want to risk forgetting about it, you can always destroy that and recreate it following the first video. But that's all for today's video, and we'll be back tomorrow with another one.